Good morning. You're listening to Central Wisconsin's 24-hour information station, AM 1320 WFHR. It's time now for the Morning Magazine, brought to you by Comfort Air Heating, Cooling, Plumbing.
Welcome, everyone, to Morning Magazine for this March 3rd, 2021. Your host, James J. Malouf here, and we are joined today by the Wood County Sheriff's Department for the entire hour. We have Sheriff Shawn Becker with us. Good morning, Shawn.
Good morning, James. Always a pleasure to be here.
Good to have you with us. We're also going to be being joined by Sergeant Investigator Scott Machotka. Or Machotka? How do you say it?
Scott Machotka.
Machotka. He's going to be joining us in a little bit here. We also want to say hello to Kevin, our friends over at Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. Always good to see you guys. Appreciate you being in with us. So Scott's going to join us in a little bit, Shawn.
Yeah.
Looking forward to that. First, before Scott gets with us, how are you and yours doing? How's everybody holding up?
Yeah, everybody's doing well. Busy time of year. The snowmobile trails are obviously closed here in Wood County, which kind of stinks, but we had a short season, but that's kind of usually how it goes. But I've always liked to take the opportunity to thank all the clubs, all the snowmobile clubs in our county, and that's throughout our whole state. Being a club member of the Kellner Knights Snowmobile Club, you get enlightened of how much work goes into maintaining the trail system here in not only, just like I said, Wood County, but the whole state. It's huge. You rely on your clubs to groom the trails, to maintain the trails, to keep them safe, and then working with the sheriff's departments and the local law enforcement agencies, the DNR. It's a huge deal, and it's an awesome recreation opportunity for people to do, but there's so much work that goes into it. And then you look at the landowners, the people that graciously allow these trail systems to go on their property. And that's a lot of thanks has to go out to the people that allow this to happen. We're
such a team effort, and
it
it's something. I've been snowmobiling a bunch since I've lived out here, but it's just been in the last 3 or 4 years that I've really learned all the different people that have to work together to make that happen, and these kind of gentlemen's rules, these kind of code and stuff that goes along with this. That it kind of takes us back a little bit to the old school way of some things of doing things, and I respect that a lot. I have a lot of care for that kind of thing. And it's a good note.
The biggest frustrating for us on many levels as a club member, as a law enforcement person, as a property owner that allows the trail to go through their properties, people that go off trail. That's very, very frustrating because that really jeopardizes the trail system. Because that property owner can say, you know what, I really, I don't think this is working out. People are going off trail. We're having issues here. And that does happen quite often, not just in Wood County, but throughout the whole trail system in the state, where you're having reroutes done over and over because of, issues like that. And we take that very seriously. That's trespassing. Stay on the trail. That's what the trail system's for, is, stay on the marked trail. If you go off the trail, you're jeopardizing the whole trail system.
Well, that's just it, because you're not just hurting yourself or hurting the landowner's land, which are certainly noteworthy, but you're making it that much harder for snowmobilers in general. And these kind of things can be taken away from us. Yep. It's not necessarily in the Constitution to have some of this stuff and everything, so we need to make sure to appreciate that kind of stuff. And you're talking from somebody who doesn't even own a snowmobile, but I love snowmobiling, and I like that we have that as an option. I don't want that taken away from us. We've got to, take care of those kind of things.
No, it's a lot of hard work goes in to the whole the trail system, but at many different levels. Like I said, being a longtime member of the Kellner Knights Snowmobile Club, you met a lot of great people, and now I've realized how much work goes into just maintaining the trail system. We had an event last Saturday out at Anchor Bay on the Wisconsin River, our radar run, which went over very well. We had to cancel it 2 weeks ago because the weather was so cold. Well, last Saturday it was 55 degrees.
Yeah.
So it's not ideal weather conditions to operate snowmobiles, and the trails were closed, unfortunately, but we were able to pull the event off, and it was very successful. We had a lot of community support. A lot of our members came out to, volunteered their time and made it happen, and it went over really well. It wasn't, like I said, ideal, conditions, but the ice conditions were okay.
Yeah.
It was safe enough to hold the event. So, a huge thanks to the owners of Anchor Bay to help us with the event. A huge thank you to all of our club members that came out to, make the event happen.
Yeah.
And then all the community support, the people that came out and either raced or spectated. It went over very well. Weather conditions for spectators were awesome.
Yeah. If you're a spectator, yeah.
But the snowmobiling wasn't ideal. So a big plug for all those folks that helped make it happen.
It's a special event. It's really good to hear that it went well. I was wondering how that went. That's good to hear. I appreciate that.
And this time of year, I got to mention the polar plunge. It didn't happen because of because of COVID. Things are starting to get back to normal, and I always like to do a shout out to our local medical people and our health department for getting us to where we're at. Things are starting to open up a little bit more, getting to some level of normalcy. So it's nice that we're moving in that direction.
I wanted to talk with you about the mental health position that just came about at Wood County, and a couple of other things if we have time.
Yeah.
But I really want to take the time today to talk to Scott and get to know him a little bit more and everything. Yeah. So if you wouldn't mind introducing him and letting our audience know why you brought Scott in today and everything.
I'll introduce him, then I'll put a zipper on.
That sounds good. Yeah, I'd like that. Yeah. It's a normal interview for us. Yeah.
No, it's a true honor to have Scott here. Scott Machotka, one of our investigator sergeants, has been part of the Sheriff's Department for over 30 years, and he'll be retiring in a couple of days. So it's a true honor to have him here, just to come in and talk about his law enforcement career. I know he didn't start with the Wood County Sheriff's Department. He's a graduate from the University of Wisconsin-Platteville, and he started his law enforcement career while going to school with the Richland County Sheriff's Department. So, and he's got more than 30 years of experience, but he started here as a deputy, a supervisor in our jail. That's what brought him up here to Wood County. And I don't think and he'll talk about this, and the zipper's got to come out here really shortly because I don't want to take away all his thunder. But, I don't think his intentions were to stay here. But he transitioned out to the road, was promoted to the road as a patrol deputy, and then his career flourished from there. So it's an honor for him to be here. I know he's got a couple days left. I'm going to miss you.
Thank you.
The career, and it speaks for itself, but then you look at the personal side of things, and we've worked together. We started on the road, or I did, with him. We worked the same shift, and then our career paths were very similar. And he's just a great person, a great friend, and a great supporter, and it's an honor for him to be here, but also sad, because I know that career path is now going to stop here or end in a couple days. But remember one thing, Scott, always going to be a friend. And number two, you're always welcome at the Sheriff's Department anytime you want.
Yeah.
Means a lot.
Scott, if you wouldn't mind pulling the mic a little bit closer to you there a little bit. Just want to make sure we hear you good. First off, thanks for joining us. And thank you for your service. Thanks for everything you've done for our community for these 30 years and on and beyond. We do appreciate it very, very much. It's a nice opportunity to get to talk to some people that we don't always get on the air with us here. And having you here with us, I want to know a little bit about what you did, but just to rewind for a second to kind of piggyback off of what Shawn was saying there. This wasn't the planned route for you, it sounds like. This wasn't necessarily where you saw your career going when you were a young man.
Law enforcement was my planned route, but when I first got hired here, like Shawn said, I got hired as a supervisor. When I started, every shift in the jail, at that time we had 3 shifts, and every shift in the jail was supervised by a sworn law enforcement officer. So I actually got hired as a supervisor. I had some experience in management prior to coming here, and I got hired on a grant, and it was a grant position for an additional drug officer at that time. So I was the bubble guy. And luckily the grant got renewed, and I ended up staying here. While I was here my first year, not a lot of people know, but within 3 months of being here, I actually got offered a full-time job back in Dane County area, where another department I worked for a short period of time as a part-time employee. And so I kind of turned that down and took my chances because I liked it here. And what turned out to what was intended to be a 1-year stint here ended up being 30 years and 2 months.
Yeah, this area has a way of doing that to you. Yeah. It's understandable, and a lot of us are shaking our head like, yeah, we understand, we get it. Yeah, you meet some people around here, and that really adds to it. And then I imagine a part of it for you was feeling like you could do some good here too. With a job like you guys do and everything, there's such an added-on thing to it where a lot of people in the workforce, who's going to pay me the most, that sort of thing. With this, there has to be some heart involved in it, and like I have to be paid. Certainly, I have to be paid well for what I do, but I also want to make an impact on my community. I want to make a difference where I am with this job. So I feel like you probably saw something like that too here.
I did see that, and really, I wouldn't have applied up here, but my grandparents sold what they had in Wauwatosa and moved up here. So they were living here at the time. So I had a little bit of connection because they were here, but it wasn't, I guess, someplace that I thought I was going to stay at.
Oh, we have something in common there. I came up here because of my grandparents too. They retired up here and everything in the Rome area, so that's how I got up here. So it's kind of interesting. Scott, when it came to being staying at this job and everything, what were some of the things that kept you here, and what are some of the things that you have enjoyed about being here?
There's a lot of stuff. I mean, I met my wife here. My first wife, she was local. Unfortunately, she passed away early on in her marriage, and then I ended up getting remarried. I like the centrality of Wisconsin Rapids. I mean, the majority of my family is all in the Madison area, Richland County.
Okay.
It's only 2 hours.
It's a beautiful area.
You can go, within 3 hours, you can be any place
in
the state of Wisconsin. And it's really nice. Quality of life is good here. Cost of living is a little less expensive than southern Wisconsin. And I really liked it, ultimately. And I'm going to stay in the area.
Okay. Even I was going to say, I didn't want to put you on the spot there. I was going to ask that off air and everything. But even in retirement, you want to stick around in the area here.
Someplace in central Wisconsin.
Good to hear. When it came to the type of work you did, what was the type of work that you did? But how much did that change over the years too?
Well, a lot has changed. I mean, initially, as a supervisor in the jail, I was responsible at that time for communications and the civilian staff and managing the jail on my shift. And supervising other officers when they came into the jail. And then I went from being technically a corporal position out to patrol. I was only on patrol about 6 years and got a promotion in early 99 to an investigator. And it's funny, I was talking to one of the guys at work this morning, and just within the last 5 years, and Shawn can attest to that, it seems like we've handled more violent crimes in the last 5 years than actually my first 25 years here. And technology certainly has changed. We didn't have email when I started. We didn't have voicemail when I first started.
Yeah.
And in-squad computers, cameras, we used to have micro cassette recorders if we needed to record something. And it's just went on from there. Now your cell phone is essentially a computer.
Right. Yeah. We got supercomputers we're walking around with on our hips and everything. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that with us, Scott. That's interesting. When Shawn first said that he was going to be bringing you in and everything, I was looking into the position a little, and honestly, it's one of those things that I hadn't thought too deeply about. But I also I initially did the one thing that I try not to do with anything that I don't know much about and assume. And I did that initially, like, okay, well, I think I know what involved in this. And I started diving into it a little bit, and just what I read online, even I found things that I didn't understand. I didn't know that you had in that position. And it feels like one of those jobs, because we've all done this, especially as sports fans, where we see a coach and we're like, oh, I can coach better than him. Oh, I could do that. And we don't understand the dynamics. It's not just calling plays. It's dealing with personalities. It's dealing with this. There's so many layers to it that we don't see when we're watching these games and that kind of thing. You know the jail's there. You see the jail. You understand that what it does and those kind of dynamics, but you don't understand necessarily everything that goes into being in charge of something like that. You just touched on it a little bit in your conversation with us already. It's one thing where you're in charge of the inmates and that, but also your fellow coworkers and that layer to it. And there's a lot put onto your shoulders when it comes to that kind of thing. So much safety involved in it. What are some other parts of the job that we may not realize that you think people would be open their eyes a little bit to of what it takes to be in that position?
You got to have a broad base of knowledge, and you got to be willing to accept that you're going to have to reach out for help, because there's a lot of different things. And over my career, I dealt with one case with a young boy who had a very rare disease, and we got a call. There really wasn't anybody around here that really knew what that was, because I think in the state of Wisconsin, I learned at that time there was maybe 2 or 3 people, children diagnosed with this. So I reached out to someone in Texas who's a professor and a medical doctor, so I would get a better breadth of knowledge to know what I'm investigating and find out if there was actually abuse or not abuse. And it ended up being there was no abuse, really, and it was great. So you have to know where to look for information or who to reach out to, and it doesn't diminish the quality of person that you are by any means to ask for help and do that. And you got to rely, like Shawn said, we work together, and Shawn and I, we did our job and we had a lot of fun, and we were always there to make sure that we were safe, when we were working. And it's just dealing with a lot of different people. It's not just people that we're looking at suspects. We're dealing with other professionals and victims and witnesses, and you kind of have to learn how to talk to everybody, like you. You have to learn how to talk to everybody. A lot of our job is similar.
Really, it's kind of funny how much of that has come up in the conversations Shawn and I have had and others have had and everything. You're absolutely right. I appreciate you sharing that, because most of us are never going to be in a position like the one that you're in right here. And when we talk about anything involving law enforcement, we tend to think we lean on what we see in TV and movies and these sorts of things, which is completely unrealistic. There are more similarities, with old like TV shows and stuff with law enforcement than we see nowadays and everything. But it is important to have some actual fact with that, some details. And it's really an interesting thing that you bring up. I did not expect that, but I'm so glad you hit on this. That we need more, because we need more of this, I think, in society, where we don't know everything. The smartest, strongest people I've ever known in my life, all of them have at least a couple things in common. They realized they didn't know everything, and they reached out for help when they needed it. And I'm thinking of like alpha male. I'm thinking of like some of your stereotypical like alpha male guys and stuff, and even they knew to reach out for help. That every once in a while we don't know everything. So, just sharing that case that you did right there, which thank you so much for sharing that. You just kept somebody from having to arguably maybe go to court or go to a prison or something like that because of the case that might have been, that wasn't their fault. They weren't committing abuse, but they may have been tried for it and everything. Here you cut that off at the pass. Who knows what tax dollars you saved, what, the system as far as like clearing that up a little bit, because we all know how clogged the system is. That's a big story right there. That's really cool that you did that. And it just comes from understanding, hey, I don't know everything. Reaching out sometimes across the aisle, if you will, to kind of do that.
Yeah, it's part of, Scott has had many years as an investigator, and we've worked together on a lot of cases, but he's worked on, if you ask about any type of investigation, he's worked it. There's no doubt from, a theft, a burglary, a computer crime, a sexual assault, all the way up to homicide. That's something that Scott has had the experience in, and what, he highlighted is, that team approach. When you handle any type of investigation, it's that teamwork. You've got not only our team, but you reach out to other teams out there that might be an expert or have at least information that can point you in the right direction, because investigations can be very complex. And I'll tell you what, with Scott's experience as an investigator, we don't have, he is the most dedicated, investigator, that, in my opinion, that we have, because he's somebody that will answer the call. Not saying that our other investigators won't, but if we have something going on off duty, and we need somebody either to answer a question or to come out and help out, I can't remember a time when he was unavailable. And that's a dedication that is huge. And that's something that we all appreciate more than
With that particular position too, it seems so key to have that mindset. To walk into a situation and understand, okay, I need to have my mind open here and not closed. I don't know everything. I'm learning as I'm going here. I'm not teaching. I'm learning right now. With that position in particular, when it comes to law enforcement and everything, I feel like that seems like one, really helpful to have that open mind. It's not a coincidence that you've had a long and a strong career with that mindset. I think that's something that a lot of people could take note from just going into almost any job that you do. It never hurts to be able to have that and be able to ask questions. But poor Pam, all the questions I have to ask Pam on a weekly basis of, if am I doing this, how am I doing that kind of thing. We are speaking with the Wood County Sheriff's Department. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but we'll come back with more with our friends from the Wood County Sheriff's Department, as well as our friends at Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. It is Morning Magazine on AM 1320 WFHR.
Good morning, and welcome back to The Morning Magazine, presented by Comfort Air Heating, Cooling, Plumbing. It's time for part 2.
Welcome back, everyone, to Morning Magazine for this March 3rd, 2021. Your host, James J. Malouf here, and we are joined by our friends from the Wood County Sheriff's Department. We have Sheriff Shawn Becker with us. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
And Sergeant Investigator Scott Machotka. Good morning, Scott.
Good morning.
Appreciate you joining us here. And, of course, want to say hi to Kevin, our friends over at Wisconsin Rapids Community Media, for being with us as well. We have Scott in with us today as he's going to be retiring after 30 strong years, and we appreciate the time from you for being with us today, and it's certainly the service that you've given to our community and everything, Scott. I have some other questions I want to ask you and everything as we go along here.
Sure.
But I was wondering if there was anything that you wanted to be able to say to the audience necessarily, or say to your community and that about the work that you've done here. And just I wanted to give you the floor necessarily for the work.
Probably one of the most things I'm proud of. Some people see it. A lot of people don't, especially if you camp in Wood County. You get to go to the Wood County campgrounds, which we have 3 of them, and we have Nepco Park and some other ATV Park and some county forest land. For 20 years approximately, I supervised our reserve deputies, or our part-time employees. At times we had 30, I think the highest we ever had was 32, and I and another deputy supervised them. And there was a couple years where it was pretty much just me supervising them. But over that 20 years of time, we sent off hundreds of new police officers, law enforcement officers all across the state, other states, federal law enforcement as well. I can't think of really in Wisconsin any level of Wisconsin law enforcement that one of the individuals didn't start here. Which I'm really lucky to count a lot of them yet as my friends. From Department of Criminal Investigation, the Wisconsin DNR, Wisconsin State Patrol, a lot of local law enforcement officers started out working part-time. And I guess just like Shawn, as an FTO, would, mentor a lot of these young people as well. And I look back on that and I look around and I see a lot of familiar faces, and a lot of them have really done very well for themselves as far as former part-time employees are now chiefs of police, and we have our chief deputy and our captain and our lieutenants, and our captain in the jail were all former part-time employees, as well as other officers that hold rank in other departments. And that really is something I look back on I'm very fond of. And I still have been involved in interviewing new candidates as well. And that's really something important. And a lot of people don't realize that we even have part-time employees unless they've seeing them out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those important things about when it comes to a job and the department that you guys have and doing the job that you do. You certainly, even if you're strangers, you care about each other and look out for each other. But the more connected you become, the more you chemistry you have, the more that you are able to speak without speaking, be able to talk to each other without even being able to say something. Just a look can give you that kind of thing. Anybody who has chemistry with anybody else that they work with, they know what I'm talking about. With your position, with what you guys do, that becomes an even more important thing and more necessary. So it is nice to be able to have that when you do it. It may not be a job requirement, but boy, it really goes a long way when you have that. And I think that's we can feel that from you guys when you guys are talking to each other, when you guys are around each other here and everything. You can see that. That's got to be an added benefit for what you do, Shawn. But in particular, the kind of work that was asked of you, Scott, and what you need to do in that position, having that kind of relationship with not just Shawn, but with the other people you work with, as you mentioned, got to go a long way. And that speaks to so much of something that Shawn and I have been talking about from day one of, this should not be breaking news to anybody, but you guys are human beings. You guys are citizens. You are community members. And you are just like the rest of us. Your positions are different. Your job is different. Things that are asked of you out of society is a little bit different. But at the end of the day, you are just like the rest of us. And getting away from this idea that we are in separate classes or something, or different human beings, or we bleed differently than you guys do, or something like that. Like these keyboard cowards out there and these kind of people that want to be so quick to judge. We need to put that in check as much as we can. Having somebody like yourself in with us, Scott, and being able to talk about these things, I appreciate that. And I share it goes a long way with that, I feel like. And it's also just interesting. I think it's just kind of where you're coming from with this and the position that you have. And also kind of interesting, too, because one of the things that I was looking forward to with talking with Sheriff Becker about was this new position, this new mental health position opening up. So as we're kind of saying a melancholy goodbye to Scott here and everything, we have something new to bring into the fold. And I know that you got to be more excited than I am about this, because I know I was really excited to read the article and see the piece that they did on Channel 9 about this, which nice job, by the way, with that. That was pretty good. The little video clip of you came up on camera. Really, you got more TV time than I do, man. I'm an actor. I'm supposed to be doing this, but it went really good. I'd like to talk about Sergeant Doug Christensen and this new position that he's taking over.
Yeah, we'll have Doug on. He's not a stranger to the program.
Yeah.
I know a couple of years ago we had Doug on with Kitty Says, who oversees crisis at Human Services, and we talked a lot about what we were doing with mental health, and really that was laying the foundation when we talked, then, and we talked quite a bit about mental health on the show here, but going back, several years with Doug and how he evolved and the passion that he has with, mental health, mental illness, and how that fits with law enforcement brought us here today. We got a grant we applied for. Want to, thank Captain Ted Ashbeck, who was familiar with the Legacy Grant and helped us, really write that grant. And we were awarded it. We were awarded that position or the funding from Legacy to move forward with it. So we're very excited. Doug is going to do very well with the position. He just started last week, and like I said, I don't want to take away a lot of what he'll talk about, because next month we're going to have him on the radio show to talk a little bit about what he's been doing, and he'll have some time in. But he's going to be somebody that I feel that will help our department be better. He'll help all of our law enforcement agencies locally be better. And as we move forward and dealing with a huge topic that isn't just law enforcement related, it's people related. Yeah. And this is something that has been, building for a while. It's not like new to law enforcement. You're seeing, many sheriff's departments and police agencies across the state that have bought into the mental health side of things, and how that can make us be better law enforcement officers dealing with the public. And again, we've talked about our CIT training. In fact, we have our next CIT class coming up. It'll be our 9th class, that averages about 25 people that go through that training course. And a lot of that is Central Wisconsin law enforcement officers, not just the sheriff's department and corrections folks, from Wood County, it's been branching out, quite a bit more. And that's going to be something that Doug's going to be continually helping put on the training for our local law enforcement folks, not just with the CAT course, but other things that are mental health related that are related to law enforcement, and it's going to make us all better. So, no, I'm very excited with the position. Again, thank you to Legacy for selecting us. We're honored. We're going to move forward with it and do our best and make a difference here in Wood County.
Yeah. I was really proud to see this, and I got to second what you said there. A big thank you to them for seeing the importance of this too, and giving us an opportunity to have something like this, because I can't even see going ahead here how many different ways this is going to impact the way we do things going forward here. And I had to say real quickly, this is certainly one that's personal to me. We've talked about this in the past, but I've come from a background from a family that deals with mental health and these sorts of things. But as I'm saying this, I'm so not alone on this one. Almost every person that's listening has somebody that, or themselves, that has some more, under the mental health umbrella. And it's something that literally affects almost every single human being on this planet. So this isn't something where I'm, some isolated case or something like that. Like all of us have some relation to this. And that just speaks to the importance of why a position like this is needed. And we will get into more of it next month when we have Doug on with us. But I appreciate you touching on it right now.
Oh, absolutely.
We have a call coming in, so we're going to go ahead and take this phone call real quick from one of our listeners. Good morning. You're on Morning Magazine. We have the Wood County Sheriff's Department on. Do you have a question for them?
No, I just wanted to call and congratulate Scott on his wonderful career. I worked with him for a long time, and he was certainly someone to be respected, and the county should be proud of the work he did.
Well said. I appreciate that. Well said. And thank you so much for the call, sir. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Lieutenant
Thank you.
Lee Garrels.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Lee. Thank you for that.
I appreciate he's listening and he called in.
I was actually expecting more of those calls. I really was. So I wasn't sure how many of those we'd get and everything. But Scott, you can expect a lot of that, I imagine, going forward. I would like to ask real quick, since Scott won't be here with us next month and everything, when it comes to the importance of addressing mental health in our jail systems, in our law enforcement, when it comes to all these different things, from the kind of job that you did, how much of an impact do you think it can make, especially considering the story you shared with us earlier, and that sort of kind of thing, where so oftentimes something, not to use an improper way to term this, but it can be misdiagnosed in a way where we may think a person is being violent and maybe they just have this, issue going on, or just as a loose example.
Just the amount of training that we receive and the amount of awareness over the last 35 years is immense. I mean, we've all had training on autism and epilepsy and dealing with people that might not hear so well or might be deaf. And there's more resources available now for us to reach out, to help people out and to make a bigger impact than there ever was even when Shawn and I both started in law enforcement, it just wasn't there.
Yeah.
Like it is now, especially in what I'm going to say is more rural areas.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's a very good point to make, and noteworthy. It's one of those things too where it just speaks to how much. First off, how far we've come with this issue. Certainly, that needs to be said and certainly noted and everything. It also speaks to how things have gotten, and not to say how bad things have gotten, but how out of hand some things have gotten, and where it's like, well, there's got to be, what we're doing isn't working. We've got to address this. Like if we keep doing the same thing, that's the definition of insanity, and we need to adjust our approach to this and everything. So that is a big part of, I think, going forward here, where we're going to see a lot of different things, not just with law enforcement, but just in general, as you touched on, Shawn. Everybody's paying attention to mental health nowadays, and it's something that's becoming more and more in the forefront. The thing that we get pushback from on this one is often, well, are these people looking for an excuse? And you could include that on any job, or are they just looking for a longer break? Or when it comes to this, what we're talking about here with you guys, are these people looking to get out of what they are accused of or something like that? And these things are not necessarily that hard to prove, if you want to use, for lack of a better word, as far as, issues and that sort of thing. So I feel like that's one of those things that can be, that argument can be crushed pretty quickly. Like, there's nobody who, we've all seen movies of the mobster who pretends he's got Alzheimer's or something so he can't be tried for his crimes or whatever, and these sorts of things. That's TV. That's a movie. That doesn't happen in real life. And nobody's ever really pulled that bit off. If they do, I will take acting lessons from them. I don't feel like that kind of thing actually really happens. But to just address that real quick, I feel like is important. That's not something that I don't think is necessarily something to worry about.
Mm-hmm. No, I would agree. It's something that, people are paying attention to, and addiction and mental health are so connected, and, we've got some great opportunities that we're working with many teams moving forward with, human services, crisis, Three Bridges. I know you had them on, folks from Three Bridges last week.
Yeah, I think it was the days are just melding together. Yeah,
time goes by way too fast, right, Scott?
Yes, it does.
Yes, Scott. Yes, this is the retiring guys.
So there's a lot of things that we can be better, and especially in the law enforcement end of things, and having an open mind and looking at how we can partner with people and provide better services for folks is only going to make the community better.
I use this as a bridge to kind of get to this next subject, because I've had a couple listeners bring this up in the last couple of weeks, and it came about mainly because there was a story, I want to say maybe a week or two ago, or actually maybe it might have been towards the end of December. Actually, it's been a while since you and I talked. Mm-hmm. But there was a Wisconsin man that was arrested for his 10th OWI. Mm-hmm. And he was driving the wrong way or something like that, and got stopped, and got arrested, of course. Now, this is a serious topic for a lot of reasons, especially in this state. But the question that kept coming back to me, and I'm sure you've already heard this plenty of times yourself, how does a person even get to a 10th OWI before not having their license taken away or something like that, or even be able to do this? And why do people... Not only, I don't want to ask necessarily why people get these, because you guys aren't making these laws or anything like that. So I get a little frustrated when people ask law enforcement, why is this a law? It's not like you guys made the law. You're enforcing the law. That's that's the job. But I would like to know why you think that our system, our legal system, continues to give people these opportunities to, because it's a thin line between everybody deserves a second chance and everybody deserves a chance to, get better and learn from their mistakes. And at the same time, a 10th OWI, that's got to stand out to people.
Right. Well, first, he probably didn't, whoever this individual was, probably didn't have a valid license at having 10 offenses. So I doubt that they are valid. I doubt they had insurance. I doubt that they owned the vehicle. But, I'm just speculating here.
Yeah.
I will say that those situations are rare. I think that, what you're talking about is newsworthy. So you're seeing people that if you have a law enforcement agency do a press release, because it is newsworthy that somebody was arrested under whatever circumstances for a 10th offense, it's gonna bring attention to that. And you're exactly right. People are gonna ask those questions on, well, how did this happen? I could see a first offense or maybe even a second, and then people go through some sort of life-changing event, whether it's some counseling or something to say, I'm not going to do that again. Well, for somebody that has the repeat offenses, well, something that obviously isn't working here, and that's where you want to talk to that individual and say, why is this happening? Why are you continuing to put your life and many other lives in danger by getting behind the wheel when you're intoxicated? And then you look at the unfortunate thing of the opportunity is there. If it could be a friend's car, it could be their car, and they've been drinking, not thinking rationally, and not taking it serious enough, and that's very unfortunate because getting back to what I just said, you're putting so many lives in jeopardy when you're getting behind the wheel and driving. What's next? Does somebody have to get hurt or worse for that individual to realize that you shouldn't be doing this? But I go back to what I started with. I think that these situations where the repeat offense is getting up to, the levels of 5 or more, I think I wouldn't say uncommon, but in a way they are. But I think that they get, the media will latch onto those because they see that, and it is newsworthy. It's like, it makes us all think, why is this happening for this particular person, that they're getting, multiple offenses, a 10th offense. I'm with you, James. Why?
Yeah. And
why are you there doing this? and when are you going to learn that you can't do this?
When we're talking about mental health, this to me screams of one of the examples of it, and it's not to say that this person who does something like this deserves it doesn't mean that you get a pass because he's doing this because he has a mental health he has an addiction issue or something like that, and we track it down the reason behind this. It's not to say that means you get a free pass, you're not in trouble at all. It means accountability without blame. This idea that we need to have this adjustment, I think, in some of our heads out there where we can hold people accountable and at the same time not shun them, not figure out why they did this. It's not enough to just have somebody have to pay for their actions. That's important. That's an important process of this, but it's not the final step. It's finding out why they did this and why they had these actions and asking the question why. And it's a big reason of why that we have this new mental health position here and why you're going to see that a lot more in other areas. I know that in California, they're doing that more. And I think all over, you're going to see much more of that, a common thing in the next 5-10 years here. But it also speaks to something that you mentioned there, Shawn, that I didn't expect you to bring up. I was going to bring up, but I appreciate that you did. And the media kind of take of this. And us as community members, as people, understanding what their game is. And they have a 24-hour news cycle. And even back in the day when people were trying to sell newspapers and have a headline, you had crimes being put in the paper, or people being not only the crimes, but when you're convicted of a crime and that being in the paper and that kind of thing. It's there for, we could say a lot of things about teaching people what not to do and all these sorts of things. It's there to sell papers, and it's there. The same thing with the media nowadays. It is there to catch your eye and to sell something. That's their job. And as much as it should just be about reporting and everything, we all understand the game. And I think understanding that is a big part of this and everything. So,
it's newsworthy, and I get it. And, we've got a criminal justice coordinator that we'll have on the radio, in the near future that, we're exploring other options with that position. We have drug court, had it for a long time, and it's successful and it's working, and we're getting people help. There are other counties that do OWI courts, and that could be an opportunity in the future that could happen. But at least it will be discussed because I think that might have an impact on people. And when you really look at those repeat offenders, what can we do, differently as a team, as providers, as law enforcement? What can we do differently to try to prevent this from happening? Law enforcement, we do get grant money to provide extra patrol. We do that through DOT. Every department has that. But, you have to look at a little bit beyond the enforcement part of this and how we can all somehow try to work together to prevent the repeat offenders, especially getting, 3, 4, 5, 6 offenses in a lifetime. There's something that we got to take a look at. But
before we go to break, one last thing I wanted to touch on with the mental health position being brought in, because Shawn, one of the things that I thought about when reading the article and hearing the discussion with Sergeant Christensen is it's important certainly for what you guys do and for the judicial system and everything, and understanding as we go forward here how we're going to adjust to it and everything like that, but also for you and your staff. To not only have that support system there of somebody there in charge of that part of thing, but for you guys also, not to say that Sergeant Christensen's going to be a psychiatrist and you guys can just go to him with all your problems or something, but to know that this issue is out there, that there's a whole department for it, and that. And at the same that you guys, when your struggles, when you have struggles, when your demons kick in or something like this, that you understand, okay, it's not such a, I don't have to be, stereotypical, I don't have to be Steve McQueen. I don't have to be a strong, silent type, that kind of thing. I can actually talk about my feelings. I can actually share stuff because with what you guys do, as important as it is for us to focus on society and why we have repeat offenders and these sorts of things, what's going on with our police departments and our officers around the country and the mental, work that's being done on their brains and their personalities and their day-to-day life. You guys deserve somebody to have, looking out for you as well.
Yeah.
And that's important.
And Doug's been part of that for a long time, even before the position. He would be very, very proactive because we've talked about officer wellness and how important that is and how much it's evolved throughout the years. I think Scott could, contest to that as well, that, when we started our careers, there wasn't much out there to look out for us, because we see a lot of tough things. And Doug, many years ago, started, just looking through our complaint book, or that we get every day of all the previous shift's complaint. And if there was a tough call in there that he identified, he'd reach out to those deputies and go above and beyond. And that's part of the position that he's in now, that he'll expect it to continue. And he would anyway, even if we didn't tell him that he was going to do it. He would do it anyway, because that's just the type of human being he is. And that's so needed in our profession, because we lose too many good people that deal with this line of work, this profession. It's hard. It's hard mentally on us, and having the opportunities out there for people to be supportive, whether it's within law enforcement or not, is probably one of the things that I'm very happy to say that has evolved and grown throughout the years. We can be better, because we still unfortunately lose good people that end their career early that probably shouldn't have, but the opportunities weren't there to help out, and they didn't ask for help. That's another thing when you look at mental health stuff. You don't want to be forced into getting help. You want to make the decision yourself, because you're going to be much more successful as you move forward. People get put in positions that, it's kind of like, all right, you're going to have to do this now, and that's unfortunate. But I think the more we move forward, addressing mental health, and it's okay to ask for help. It is totally okay to ask for somebody to help you out under any type of circumstance.
Yeah, the strongest. It actually shows your strength, asking and reaching out a little bit. We have to take a really quick break. We'll be right back with more with Wood County Sheriff's Department on Morning Magazine, AM 1320 WFHR. Looking at your local temperatures, 37 in Stevens Point and Marshfield and Wausau, 41 here in Wisconsin Rapids, where we have the Wood County Sheriff's Department in with us, along with our friends from Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. As we wrap up the show here, Scott, just wanted to take a moment to kind of touch on a little bit of your career and, the accomplishments that you had. And during the break there, we brought up something very interesting I thought was very noteworthy, that you would not bring up yourself, but me and Shawn are making you bring up. I should let the audience know that. We are making you bring this up. But if you could touch on that just for us for a second.
So it was 1993, right around Christmas time. I and another officer helped pull two people out of a house that had a malfunctioning furnace. Both of us ended up in the hospital over near Christmas time. I was in intensive care for a day or two, and luckily I got released. I received a service award from the state union, the Wisconsin Professional Police Association, and then following that I received basically a Heroes Award from then Governor Tommy Thompson. And I think that year I and my coworker and one other officer from Brown County were the only ones in the state to receive that. It's something that I truly believe that anybody working that night would have done exactly what I did. And to me, that's part of my job and what I do.
I agree with you. I as far as the latter part of that most people with that badge and that position, that's what they're trained to do. That's what they would do. But you were the one there. You and your partner were the ones that happened to be there that night, and we appreciate that you were, and that what you reacted the way that you did and handled it the way you did. And I think it's incredibly noteworthy. Had I known that going into this, I'd put you on the spot a lot earlier. That's a really, really fascinating story. And it speaks to so much of the work that not only you did, but people like yourself, like Shawn, that it put in these decades, not just years, decades to public service and what you do and being the person that when other people run from the burning building, you got to be the one running towards it, literally in that situation. So I don't think a lot of people can relate to that necessarily, but it's important that we hear these stories so we can appreciate what you do, and it goes a long way.
And one thing I want to bring up before we close, the ski show, with the involvement of Scott and what he's done for our part-time reserve deputy program over the years, that during his tenure, 20 years of that program, he's touched out and influenced well over 200 people, young law enforcement officers that are around the state, like he'd mentioned, and they still call him as a resource, either as a resource or a reference or something. So what he did to build that program to what it is today is on Scott. Bottom line, it is. And then, talking about the ski show, if you go back a few years to see how much police enforcement or contacts or just involvement, what the ski show had, we used to have to empty out our jail for that weekend, back several years. Once Scott took over our part-time program, he reached out to other people, the aqua skiers who host the tournament, and helped establish rules, guidelines. How can we, make this event safer and more? It's a huge community event, and that changed. Now that show, it brings, I think, more people in, being that I was an aqua skier, and it's a safer event. There's a lot of fair rules in place for all the skiers that they understand, if they don't behave, that it has a huge impact. But that all came from Scott, opening those conversations, saying, hey, how can we change this so there isn't so much law enforcement out here dealing with issues? We rarely have any issues as far as law enforcement calls to surface for an event that has thousands of people at that. And that all evolved from Scott's involvement with our part-time program, because he spent many hours through that whole weekend, probably 40 to 50 hours on his own, working all night, making sure things are going over safely. And that dedication, that was a big change for the sheriff's department, the community, and our parks, everything, bringing so many people together to say, okay, how can we change this to make this event that it's awesome. It's a great community event that brings in lots of people here, and having that safety aspect where you can go and enjoy ski shows and not worry about an issue coming up. That's on Scott.
Yeah, it's a strong legacy you're leaving there, Scott, and multiple layers, multiple levels and everything. And it's also noteworthy, something that you kind of touched on a little bit earlier, Shawn. We don't get a chance often enough to be able to have these moments with our department members and our police officers and different people in these industries, where you guys get the chance to retire and everything and have this moment. So we are very thankful for that, and incredibly thankful for everything you were able to do for our community in this time, Scott. We appreciate you. We wish you a very relaxed, enjoyable retirement. Try to relax. Try to enjoy yourself. I know it's hard for you guys when you retire to do that. Please do. Make sure to do it. And we appreciate you for your service. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Thank you, Scott.
You're welcome.
Thank you to you too, Shawn, for bringing not only Scott in, but for the time and the transparency and the fun conversation we always have. And I have to thank you for the Frank Thomas card. Thank you for that very much. Appreciate it. Always good talking to you. We're looking forward to seeing you next month.
Yeah.
Big thanks to our friends at Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. I want to say hi to Kev and Joe, our friends over there. We appreciate you. Thanks a lot. We'll have more Morning Magazine for you tomorrow right here on AM 1320 WFHR.